Life after spiritual awakening becomes simplified. Not blissful, but simplified. Now, this may appear to be a contradiction because a couple of days back, I made a video where I said that after spiritual awakening, there is a lot of pain and suffering. But you see, that happens when the awakening has happened, not to the person, but simply awakening has happened. And the mind-body organism, having seen reality, or let's put it this way, having experienced its own illusory existence, becomes confused initially. So all the past beliefs, ideas, theories, formulations, concepts now begin to fall apart. That causes conflict. That causes confusion. For example, you may have worked 9 to 5 all your life, but after awakening, there is a confusion. You feel blissful completely without doing anything, but at the same time, one part of your mind is saying that no, I must continue my job. Otherwise, I will lose my status, my stature. So there is a pull in two different directions, which causes tension, which causes pain. But you see, it doesn't remain like this. It slowly begins to dwindle. This confusion, this energy begins to dissipate. How? Now I will explain. Ramesh Balsekar talks about two aspects of mind. Although mind is only one, but for the sake of simplification, we say that there are two aspects of mind. One is the working mind and other is the thinking mind. Both these mind are part of the ego-intellect system, but the thinking mind is completely identified with an outcome, whereas the working mind is only the creative mind, the mind that is only concerned with the task at hand. It is not concerned with the successful completion of the task. Thinking mind, on the other hand, is future-oriented. What will people think of me? How will this impact my relationships? What will this do for me? If I achieve this, what will it do for me? So you see, there is this split. Now, what happens after awakening? The thinking mind begins to dissolve and the working mind emerges. The creative working mind starts emerging more and more. That simplifies life. How? Let's say you are in a difficult situation. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine who is extremely wealthy one time came with a problem to me. He said that I have taken a loan, a huge amount of loan, and I'm not able to repay the loan, and my business is suffering losses. And he asked me for a practical advice on this matter. So I asked him, what would be the worth of the property, the house that you're living in right now? And he told me that it is 10 times way more than the amount that he's supposed to pay back to the bank. And I proposed a simple solution. I said, why don't you find a humble dwelling, sell this property, and the problem will be solved. But you see, he said, no, this is not possible because that is my ancestral property. My 5 generations have been living in that property, and there is no way I will ever sell that property because it is a matter of pride to me. He clung on to the property. And that clinging on caused pain and suffering. He did not listen to me at that time. But about an year later, I get a call from him. And he says, you were right, it worked. Because I was not able to pay the loan in any way. So I had to sell the house. And it was a very heavy decision. It was a decision that caused me and my family a lot of pain and suffering in the moment. But now my life is so pleasant because I live in a smaller house which has less maintenance, the expenses are low, and my life is simplified because I have to pay less taxes and I don't have to worry about security and other issues which are associated with big properties. On top of that, he saved a lot of money to invest in his business, which was now flourishing. So you see, it was just a matter of switching the perspective. And that switching happens when the thinking mind dissolves. The thinking mind that is concerned with my lineage, my ancestors, my pride, my accomplishments. When it gives up all of that, then working mind comes into play. The working mind is, oh, this is the value of the property, this much money I need to pay, this is how I will, organize my things, I will pay off the loans, invest in my business, do better in my work. That is the working mind, the beautiful working mind. What happens after awakening? Your working mind becomes activated. For some people, it takes a little time for that to emerge. For others, it happens quickly. But the mind, the thinking mind that is concerned with an outcome, that if I'm doing something, the result must be according to my preferences, that begins to dissolve. And that simplifies life. So what happens? Life becomes spontaneous. And spontaneous living is joyful living. It is living full of fun. The spontaneous mind, the working mind, does not hold on to stuff. It does not collect. My friend suggested this very beautiful phrase. She said, Jagjot, do not collect. And this has been said by Jiddu Krishnamurti too, that we collect, we register. I register the insults. I register this was said to me, that was said to me. And in the moment, it is human to experience pain over something, over a perceived insult. It may not have been insult from the other person's perspective, but we may think that it is an insult. And then we cling on to it. And then we register it. And the thinking mind comes up, how dare they said this to me? How dare they said that to me? And it goes on and on and on and on. And what happens? Continuous pain and suffering, pain and suffering. Now, after awakening, that same process continues. But the period of pain and suffering begins to dissolve. It does not last very long. Whereas, when the mind is completely absorbed in unconsciousness, that period extends for months, sometimes years, sometimes even decades. Some people do not forget insults or something that was said to them even decades earlier. And to live such a life is a very painful way to live life. But awakening destroys this sense of separate personal identification, sense of the separate self. It begins to destroy, dissolve this, normalize this, I would call it. Not kill it, but normalize it. So yes, one may still be reactive in a given moment. That is part of one's personality, and that still continues. But it does not stick in horizontal time as pain and suffering. That is the only difference. So life becomes a lot simplified because you're not concerned with outcome anymore. You may do the best for your family, you may do the best for your spouse, you may do the best for your parents, but even after doing your best, your perceived best, it may not be good enough for anybody. You may be still left alone, isolated, abandoned by people you love. It may happen because your good enough may not be good enough for them. But when you act with this notion that it is not me who is acting, but God acting through me, and not a personal God, God as consciousness acting through me, then you're not concerned with outcome. My friend said, you are not a banker anymore. You don't transact with people in that way. That I invested this much, therefore I must get that much from them. You just give. You give unconditionally. You keep giving. And there will not be any resentment or hurt if there is no expectation. Expectation arises from the thinking mind, and then it causes pain and suffering. If I serve you a box of chocolates in the morning when you wake up and expect that on seeing the box of chocolate you will smile and come and give me a hug, then two things may happen. Either it may happen the way I want it, and then I may formulate that, oh, this works. But next time when I try that, it may not work. And when it doesn't work, then I will say that it's futile. People are bad, people are arrogant, people are rude. What I am not seeing is my own conditioning. That I went there with an expectation that I am giving something to them to make them feel happy. I am sending flowers to them to make them happy. So this sense of expectation that result should be according to my preferences, that begins to dissolve. Even after receiving the flowers or the box of chocolate, the other person may not be able to appreciate. And it's not that they deliberately do that. It's just that that person may be undergoing a lot of emotional processing themselves. A lot of forces may be acting on that person. And they may require a little bit of time to reciprocate. And that is why personal relationship conflicts happen in our life. But after awakening, there is less and less expectation of this entire thing, that the other person should reciprocate. Now, it is but natural that if there is no balance in the relationship between the giving and taking, the relationship will end, because every action has consequences. But then, even if it ends, it will not end on a bitter note. It will end with this understanding that it was meant to be. So one will not constantly live with this pain that I could not do it. You did your best, but you could do your best because consciousness or the ultimate force allowed you to do the best. It was not your effort that did it. It is the impersonal energy running through you that did it. You were just an instrument of execution. When you have that knowledge, you don't build expectation. Expectation is a part of the thinking mind system. And when there is no expectation, then there is no pain and suffering. It doesn't mean that you become a doormat and you keep trying to please people all the time. It doesn't mean that. Spiritual awakening doesn't make you good or nice in any way. You still act according to your thinking, your ideas, your concepts. The only thing is that now you accept that outcome can be anything. It can be in alignment with your preferences or even otherwise. And both cases are accepted. And even the disappointment or happiness associated with both of these cases are also accepted. But there is no fighting. There is no trying to control or change anything. So life becomes spontaneous. You don't have to think too much. You act spontaneously. It becomes simplified. It doesn't mean that life becomes easy or life becomes blissful after awakening. No, we all face ups and downs of life. We don't just get caught up in unnecessary drama. At some point, we recognize that it is happening and then we drop it, embrace each other, and simply be. And in that being, which is the highest love, we revel. We become the pure light.